Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to go back over climate change. So I did a video about a month ago questioning the true history of climate change, and the past few days where I've had time, I've been looking over that book. I found a few things that I found quite interesting. I've basically done a list of dates of weather events as well. There's 3 pages here that all things pertaining to England and Great Britain, between the years 88 AD and 1822. But I'll get into that in a minute. So yeah, this book is illustrations of the atmospherical origin of epidemic disorders of health. Yeah, it goes on about the twofold means of prevention, mitigation, and cure of change of air. It's basically saying that a lot of epidemics, issues like plague, all the things that we've heard about in our past might have actually occurred by a change of air. And as I go through the book, you'll basically see it. It says itself quite explanatory. So I've saved a few tabs throughout the book to go to. I'm not going to read too much from each point, but just a little bit. And you've got to bear with me, I've got to try and remember which point it was that I was trying to find. Yeah, there it is. I may observe that I've found hail and snow so generally the vehicle of electricity to be more conductive to an early vegetation in warmer air, in dry spring, or one which was attended by much unwholesomeness, non-electric rain. Land Abbey Berthelon goes further and asserts that plants grown near the conductors of atmospherical electricity flourish better than those at a distance from them. So yeah, this is basically where I done a video a couple of weeks ago called How to Grow Giant Food, and this is kind of confirming it in a way. Not that it's intended to, but it is in my mind. But with the atmosphere being electrical, clearly with lightning and thunder running through it that we all see, in times of heightened electric atmosphere, it kind of allows the plants to grow a bit better as well. So where I was saying in my video that if we run electromagnetic currents, put magnets in the soil, stuff like that, that would help grow a lot better. So he's saying here, and it relates to one remarkable instance in France in which some jasmine shrubs were planted against the side of a house, down the side of which was carried a metallic conductor of lightning. On these jasmines, those which grew near the insertion of the metallic rod acquired 3 times the size of the others, and extended so high as to reach the upper windows. If this be right explanation of the disparity of size of the shrubs, those which grew by the conductor might not only have a larger share of the fluid exerted on them, but the conductor, according to the known laws of electricity, might deprive the circumjacent air and consequently the more distant jasmines of their natural quantity. So it's basically saying it's sapping all the goodness away from the others as well. Seasons in which there is much thunder and lightning are most productive of vegetable life, and the equilibrium of atmospherical electricity has been found much disturbed in the seasons of epidemical pestilence. So yeah, it's basically, like I say, it was kind of confirming in my mind what I was saying about growing food in a larger way. He's pretty much confirming it there. Another point that I found. So from a fortunate change of weather at the time was removed, our patient might naturally expect an increased good effect. So what he's saying, and what he'll say throughout most of these tabs, is often the cure for epidemics and diseases and plagues isn't actually by taking substances to try and relieve your body, but rather it's to move away from the area you're geographically in, and to get a whole different atmospheric electricity around your body, and that is what he's trying to say often clears up things. And in points throughout the book as well, he mentions how when epidemics and stuff were going on, doctors were lined up one behind the other, and they got given a turn each to take turns to treat patients for whatever it might be. And each one came in with a different idea and different way of treating things. And often, apparently, the last physician to do his bit, there would be a change in the air, and no matter what it was that he gave, what ingredient it was, herb or whatever it was given praise, and that doctor was given praise for curing that epidemic or that disease, when in reality it was nothing to do with what they were doing. They were just in front of the patient when the air changed, and that's basically what he's often trying to get at in this book. Prevail eventually subside with certain changes, however, a return of particular seasons. Great importance of a right knowledge of the true nature of these disorders will appear manifest if we only reflect to the erroneous practice which has resulted from a belief that they were caused by specific morbid poisons, only to be generated by contagion. Just basically what I just said. This false notion, having gained general belief in Christian Europe, has induced practitioners to overlook the grand source of benefit found in a prompt change of local situation. The Turks, who, like the ancient Greek and Arabian physicians, have less faith in a medicine in cases of pestilence than the Christian population of the same countries, by sending the disease to a distance instead of tampering with remedies of uncertain operation, have often been surprised to find that their patients, cured by a change to the air of the country, who has been removed as incurable from the cities and towns, were those, on the other hand, whose symptoms were less severe and who were left in the cities where the atmospheric cause was in full operation. They eventually died under its influence. This has been proved in innumerable cases recorded by Dr. McLean's work of plague, yellow fever, and of pestilential fevers. I've known it to happen in typhus, scarcelina, and a few others of less importance. So yeah. The Teutonic and Saxon words for liver too have the same root as the word of life, and implied a vital importance as large as viscous of the body. The ancients, as we've seen, became very early acquainted with these facts. Excuse me. The poets of Rome, Juvenal, Persius, and others have often alluded to it, and Horace's celebrated Ode to Lydia, in which he depicts a whimsical anguish of a jealous lover, is almost a medical description of hypochondriasis. In this Ode, the liver, tamified with obstructed bile, the change of colour in the countenance, and the emotions in the mind, and the ultimate relief by the flow of tears that ordinarily happens in paroxysm of that Promethea malady of disorder of liver, and the sympathetic febricula is the acknowledged cause. So he's saying here, actually I think it does give an example of it. Or maybe not. So he's saying here that poems and stuff where they're talking to people seeing such a beautiful sight and blood, cheeks going red and tears coming up and people just going through such emotional times. He's saying that when you get depictions like that in poems and stuff, it's actually a depiction of the symptoms of the plagues and epidemics that are occurring. So I've got quite a few points and they go on more further, so I'll try and get through them. What was this one? Case occurred lately of a lady who always had toothache when residing at a particular town on the coast of the Mediterranean, but lost it on going to the interior of the country. All those who desire to preserve good teeth should pick them and brush them daily, as the remains of food lodging in the intersects and cavities is the principal exciting cause of their premature decay. Don't know why about that now. So there was an epidemic of gum boil and sore mouth at one point. There was loads of different types of epidemics. I really encourage everyone to download and read this book. When I go through this list and that, like I say, I've only done the things related to England, and there could be more. It's just some of the dates are vague as to where certain things are happening, but all the things that do point out in United Kingdom, I've written down. Anyway, so this bit is is this what I think it is? I think this is to do with, I'll just read it. I saw her in a state of mind, completely sound, and after the terror was over, with perfect calmness, for 2 months, almost constantly and involuntary, a vast number of human and other forms. This is a testimony of someone that's basically seeing ghosts, animals, people, but it explains it anyway. And even heard their voices, for all this was merely the consequence of a diseased state of the nerves and an irregular circulation of the blood. It being a matter of importance that an incident of this should be observed with the strictest attention, and related, together with all collateral circumstances, with the most contentious fidelity, I shall not omit anything of which I retain a recollection. The truth of what I am going to advance will not require a farther testimony, as Dr. Sell, who was my physician, was daily informed by me of every trifling occurrence and change that happened, is still living, and will, by all who know him, be most readily admitted as an unnegotiable witness. During the 10 latter months of the year 1790, I had experienced several melancholy incidents which deeply affected me, particularly in September, from which I suffered an almost uninterrupted series of misfortunes. I was accustomed to be bled twice a year, and this had been done since the 9th of July, but was omitted to be repeated at the end of the year 1790. I had, in 1783, been suddenly taken to a violent vertigo, which physicians imputed to obstructions in the finer vessels of the abdomen, brought on by a sedentary life and a continual exertion of the myad. This indisposition was successfully removed by means of a mere regular strict diet. I had in January and February of the year 1791 the additional misfortune to experience several extremely unpleasant circumstances, which were followed on the 24th of February by a most violent altercation. My wife and another person came into my apartment in the morning in order to console me, but I was too much agitated by the series of incidents which had most powerfully affected my moral feeling to be capable of attending to them, and suddenly perceived about the distance 10 steps, a distance of 10 steps, a form like that of a deceased person. I pointed at it, asking my wife as if she did not see it. It was but natural that she should not see anything. My question therefore alarmed her very much, and she sent immediately for a physician. This phantasm continued about 8 minutes. I grew at length more calm, and being exhausted, fell into a restless sleep which lasted about half an hour. The physician ascribed the apparition to a violent mental emotion, and held there would be no return but violent agitation of my mind, had in some way disordered my nerves, but produced farther consequences which deserved a more minute description. At 4 in the afternoon, the form of which I had seen in the morning reappeared. I was by myself when this happened, and being uneasy at the instant, went to my wife's apartment, but likewise I was prevented by the apparition, which, however, at intervals disappeared, and always presented itself with a standing posture. About 6 o'clock, there appeared also several walking figures, which had no connection with the first. I cannot assign my other cause of this to continued remuneration of the vexations I had suffered, which through karma I could not forget, and the consequences of which I meditated to counteract. These thoughts occupied my mind 3 hours after dinner. Just then, when my digestion commenced. I consoled myself at last with respect to the disagreeable incident which had occasioned the first apparition, but the phantasms continued to increase and change in the most singular manner, though I had taken the proper medicine and found myself perfectly well. As when the first terror was over, I beheld the phantasms with great emotion, taking them for what they really were, remarkable consequences of an indisposition. I endeavoured to collect myself as much as possible, that I might preserve a clear conscience to the changes which should take place within myself. I observed the phantasms very closely and frequently reflected on my antecedent thoughts to discover, if possible, by means of what association of ideas exactly these forms presented themselves to my imagination. Sorry, this is going to go on for quite a while, I think. So, yeah, I won't read that. He starts seeing more, and he basically says that he can tell what it is, and it goes on for a long time, years, and he can tell the difference between when a phantasm's happening or not. But it was nothing to do with his sickness, but it could have been something to do with the atmosphere, seeing things like that. And the strange thing is, he said at times he could hear them making sounds, and there was always animals as well, and they were always the right size. Like if he saw a phantasm bird, he'd know it was not a real bird straight away, that it was just a hallucination ultimately. But it would always be the right kind of size. You wouldn't see a giant bird or anything like that. But it was quite interesting to me as to how this kind of thing could come about through atmospherical changes and the electricity, atmospheric electricity in the air. And while we're here as well is maybe, I don't know, is with regards to all the ancient architecture that generated atmospherical electricity, maybe they weren't built well enough and they kept leaking their electricity back into the atmosphere. Maybe it's taking it as a gas, electricity gas, and then it's leaking it back from the buildings as an electricity liquid somehow, and it's affecting the atmosphere. It's going back into it. I know that's not scientifically right, but it's just the way I'm kind of envisioning it and trying to explain it. So when this has happened, maybe it's caused there to be a surge in static electricity, atmospherical electricity, and it's caused all this stuff to happen that's comet after comet and plague after plague and so on for seems like 1800 years straight. And maybe, yeah, it's calmer now because that pent up electricity that was caused by the ancient architecture has diffused out through such things as the pestilences and the plagues and all that. I might be wrong, but this is just how I'm kind of thinking it at the moment. So, can't see why it was there. Difficult to determine. In many instances, the extent and range of epidemics, influenza and other epidemic catarrhs, sometimes have a wide range in Europe. I can't see what it was. So here he's saying, the opinion I have advanced that electricity as a principal agent would receive great confirmation if I could show, in addition to what has been said already, the electrical phenomena of an extraordinary sort have preceded or accompanied the most remarkable instances of pestilence. Like the zodiacal light of the last Michaelmas day, which arising from the west and being an evanescing arc over the zenith of the east, would in early times have been said to be a forerunner of the present fever of the peninsula. So another thing is, throughout this book I didn't write much of them down, but there's a lot of days in the 1800s when this author was alive being celebrated that I've never heard of. There's Michaelmas Day, there was a Martinmas Day. There's about 4 or 5 others as well. I've never heard of them before I read this book. maybe they are the modern day Easter and stuff, I'm not too sure. So yeah, this is basically a slight confirmation about the depopulating nature of what's happened with these comets and the atmosphere. Basically saying when we consider the devastating nature, the class of disorders to which this essay relates, the terrible effect with which they have at times visited almost every country and in every age of the world, it would be impossible not to see that they must have had a large share in the work of depopulating the many once flourishing cities and states, which have now gone to decay and are almost forgotten. So, like I've said before in previous videos, I do think resets are happening, and this is clearly evident of it. But I think before, I was seeing it as a black and white, this and that kind of way, that when a reset happened, that's it, everyone's wiped out except for the survivors, and then they start fresh. Well, I think it's, as I've always said, it's God that sends it all. And I don't think it happens on a global scale. I think it's localised, albeit some of the times there'll be an epidemic that's worldwide, like influenza going worldwide in some dates and stuff like that. But actual wiping out of large percentages of civilizations, I think, happened all at different times. So there was no black and white date that this was a reset date for this country, because from what I've gathered from the dates of this, if it's all true or even close to true, is that the reset was going on for a long period of time, and this could have happened a few thousand years ago as well. So it could be the second batch of bad disease and stuff upon people. I don't know, So carrying on. And like the comet burns, so this is Pope evidently taking poetic license with Homer and Milton's lines in his head in Paradise Lost. And like comet burns in the Arctic sky, and from his horrid hair shakes pestilence and more. Homer in the 22nd book of the Iliad, on the 30th verse, introduces a description of Achilles, an allusion to the pestilential influence of the star called Orion's dog. I can't read that, I'm not even going to try. In another place, Homer alludes to the long period of pestilence which began during the siege of Troy, and which was followed by tremendous eruption of Mount Etna. Virgil describes the effects of the eruption of Etna when flying by sea from Troy to Sicily. This is Homer. How long ago was Homer? And how are people flying in Homer's day? If I recollect right, the glowing description of this eruption of Etna ends thus. Can't read that. Pestilence from Troy at length reached Sicily, and Dionysius Halicarnassensis described in his first book the destructive influence of the early Pelasgi, who first settled in that island. Yeah, there's often in this book talking about the air and being full of vapours, dark vapours, blue vapours, colourful vapours, about cities and countries, and causing electric phenomena and ill health and pestilence in quite a lot of places. So Augustus, I think he was reigning around the time of Yeshua. So what did I see here? Soon after the reign of Augustus, a pestilence swept the fertile countries of Asia Minor, which is modern-day Turkey area kind of thing. And during its prevalence, an earthquake completed the work, which would make sense because I think there was a great earthquake when Yeshua died, which was around, I think it was around the time of after the reign of Augustus. I'm going to have to check that, sorry. A comet is mentioned at the same time as the cause, whose tower is said with one fell swooped and hurled down a dozen fine cities at once. It is to this catastrophe that Tacitus alludes to in the year 47. Whether the comet had a real connection with the earthquakes remains to be proved, or rather inferred, in proportion as we can establish from historical records the doctrine alluded to. And then, as of here, this is basically where the calendar starts. In year 4, it is an eruption at Etna. Destroyed Babylon and other great cities soon after a comet was discovered. How the dearth became to be foretold by Agabus. So, alright, so here it is. So it starts from 15 AD and then it goes through. I don't have enough time to read all these pages, but ultimately what you can see, hopefully, is these are the years. So you got year 88, you got stuff going on in England, and then 137 to 11 to 18. In the year 252, it's stated that pestilential state of the air for years, and half of human race fell by this. Then you've got comet, earthquake 2 years later in England, after 321 comet, a universal famine in Britain. 339 comet followed by earthquakes, deep snow in England. And then it kind of goes away for 100 years and it comes back. Comet, pestilence. Sorry, it doesn't actually go away for 100 years. Throughout these dates in this book, what you'll find is on average, there's about 500 comets throughout these 1800 years. So something like that. And it worked out that there was like a comet every 2 to 3 years. But as you can see, these dates go on and they're quite close to each other, and there's always saying every year almost happening. And even though on here there might be gaps of the years on the catalogue, it didn't state England or London or anywhere in Britain there, so I just didn't include it in this list. But this list is just so massive as to how much was going on that so in them times it was bad, and now we've got that period of half an hour, as God says it, of calm before the storm. And so basically some of the things I did find in here that I was going to bring up, there's still loads in here that I'm not going to bring up that's worth reading. Apparently 2 islands around Turkey formed, Thera and Thracia, in 725. Plague raged in Turkey. Very remarkable vapour arose from the sea between the 2 newly formed islands. This vapour deposited a dense substance that hardened into a sort of pumice, which covered parts of Asia Minor. Is that bizarre? A mist turning into a pumice? Can this throw any light on the hard substance called lunar stones, which are hurled down, ignited in the form of meteorites? Possibly. Yeah. So 1760 comet, and in 762 2 comets followed by extraordinary cold, Euxine frozen again in March following, so that'd be March 763, I think. Meteors, falling stars were very numerous, and the hot summer which followed, pestilence accompanied by the prodigious abundance of small flies. So just reminded me of stars falling even as figs from a fig tree. Obviously not the right timing. Unless obviously this has been fiddled with 1,000 years and this is more like a couple hundred years ago at 1760. I don't know, just thinking out loud. In 1373, insanity visited people as an epidemic. No one could call this contagious, and yet it spread as disorders do, which are vulgarly called infectious. This epidemic determined the blood in such violence to the brain as to occasion a delirium, often ending in madness. And it may be remarked that this disease prevailed while the volcanic eruptions of the next year were gathering. So all this stuff with all these depopulating situations going on as well could also give rise to foundries for kids without parents, as well as war, where they're going off to fight and kids being left behind. Where we're hearing in the past there was lots of foundries, kids working. Maybe it was because there was just no parents. They were all dying, and that the people that ruled the world obviously had to keep things ticking. So who else is there to do the work? I don't know. So, on 1640, there was something going on 9/11. On the 11th of September, a remarkable meteor in America. It's a great elevation early in the morning. Malignant epidemic, fever in England. Hard winter, very curious meteors seen in Boston the following years. I brought it up because it's because on 9/11, early in the morning, when 9/11 happened a couple of years ago, wasn't that in the morning as well? So just thought I'd bring that up. 1754, earthquake in Egypt. Gangrenous sore throat in England. Ooh. Yeah, so this note here, from 1751. After this period, the dates refer to the new style. Now, I don't know what he's talking about because that looks exactly the same style as that. But if you remember a minute ago, I was saying about the stars falling from heaven around 750, and then saying that there might be something there to do with the 1,000-year fiddle. Maybe it's because around 1,000 years later they're changing their way or something in this book. Anyway, so comet in 1828 called Encke's comet. I just brought it up because the Lost Book of Encke. There was also a remarkable zodiacal light, seeing of which the account can be found in the Essex Herald and Chelmsford Chronicle. And then this is about as far as I got, so I only made it there. I've got about another 30 pages, I suppose. Yeah, another 30 pages. But I just wanted to do this video and get that out there. But it does talk about Halley's Comet and its great returns and the cycles and stuff. And before my video runs out, I went on Gallagher, I typed in atmospheric phenomena, changed publication date to ascending, selected English, and there's a whole 100 odd or 200, there's another English option, 200 books of atmospheric information that you should all get on there and download, which is what I'm going to do now. Hope you all enjoyed, and I'll speak with you all again soon. Take care and God bless.